Get this coffee and sip. Man, I'm sore.
From what?
The thing about now I understand where you Northerners have to deal with this. Hey, everybody, what's going on? I'll start up here in a second. When you have a window of beautiful weather and you're like, let's squeeze in everything. We go to the beach, we go golfing, we go picnicking, get family gatherings, go sit in the barn like you did today. And I got that bug because I'm originally a Northerner. So I got that bug right off the bat. Weather's been spectacular. 70s in the day, 60s at night. Let me go out and rebuild my house. So all I've been doing is working in the yard and working on the house, putting up new framework around the windows and such. And I did something. I don't know what I did, but this bicep feels like I pulled this bicep. My hamstrings are killing me. My back is killing me. I feel old. I should retire to Florida. Wait a minute. Too late. I'm already there. Good evening, everybody.
You've discovered you have a bicep.
Woo, my.
So where's the downside?
Used to have biceps, not anymore. But good evening, everybody, and welcome to Dead Air Live on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel. We are simulcast with KGRADB.com, KGRA on YouTube and Facebook. It's me again, George Lopez, along with Mr. Ken DaCosta up in Rhode Island area. And we have an exciting show for you guys joining us tonight, Mr. Bill Bean. Wait for these stories. Get out the holy water. Get out the crucifixes, because if any of you get that sensation, we are not responsible. Do we have that disclaimer, Ken, still that we can put out there?
I'll get it up there. We'll just like Pinky, we'll Pinky promise everybody.
The Dead Air management, producers, and owners are not responsible for any activities regards to demonic possession, oppression, fainting, your dog barking violently, or any sounds coming from the other room.
Cat staring up at the ceiling.
Yeah, nothing to do with us whatsoever. However, babies looking up at the ceiling are freaky. So if you got babies looking at the ceiling, we may cut you in on tonight's show. Looking forward to it. You were busy today also, Ken. You had a lecture. You kind of jumped ship, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to the other side, as I love to do once in a while. Maybe 3 or 4 times a year, I give a presentation to MUFON, Massachusetts, and today was that day. Absolutely lovely. Norton, Massachusetts, a fall day in an old colonial barn, a huge barn they have on the property. And we put about 50 people in there, and everybody was so enthusiastic. And hey, many thanks to Tom Reed for coming in, streaming, and Elizabeth Michael from Roswell Convention Center. Nice. And we were able to stream them in as our guests today, and everybody just had a great time. There was hot cider and donuts, and geez, it was like trick-or-treat for adults today without the costumes, but it was outstanding. So thank you to MUFON Mass for inviting me back again. That was a great time, a lot of fun.
No. Forgive me, it's another side of this coin, the paranormal coin. We will do these conventions, but we will also involve paranormal investigating. We'll go out to that same haunted location or somewhere else we'll transfer to and do an investigation until 3, 4 in the morning. Do you guys go out and look at the stars for a couple hours at least when you do this?
It all depends on it. I have no aversion to that whatsoever. There are worse things to do in life than just gazing up at the sky. And doing a sky watch, it doesn't normally bear a lot of fruit, very much like ghost hunting. It's hit or miss, but, it's just a great environment and a great atmosphere. When you're with like-minded people who have open minds to things, but yet are still critically thinking, it's usually fun. I mentioned hot cider, right?
No.
Yeah, no, they had hot cider. I was going to sneak some Onyx moonshine into it, but
Oh, let's not go down that road again.
yeah, no, it was just like it was like a junior prom, It was like kind of sneak it in and pour it in. But
Do not
I thought
forget to
I thought better of it.
do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Also, the thumbs up, the likability of what it is that we're doing, and the reminder bell for upcoming content for all of the fascinating topics that we have here on Dead Air Full Spectrum. And there's all kinds of great shows and little specials that come up. So you guys make sure you click on that reminder bell for upcoming content. But you got to
Yeah,
subscribe. You got to subscribe.
yeah, do it.
All right. I guess we can't put this off any longer. This is going to be terrifying. This is going to be informative, and it's going to be a wonderful reunion too to have him come back. Mr.
You know,
DeCosta, would you do the honors?
I will. I would like to preface our introduction by first of all saying the one thing that we've gathered in the time that we've been doing this show is a lot of times the people in chat share some of their stories with us and with their other friends in chat. And sometimes they have to do with the negative aspects of the paranormal. And we do our best, as the people in chat do, to support and lift those people and let them know they're not alone. But tonight, because we're all among friends here, we have someone very special tonight who is much more well versed in these type of things than we might be. So if there's something that you want to share with our guests, we encourage you to please do so, because one of the reasons we do this show is to reach out to you and again let you know you're not alone. Um, People go through these kind of things, and I know there's somebody out there that's always going through something. So this is the type of show that I think can definitely answer some of those questions and do you some good. So uh, in any event, our next guest is a man of many iterations. He is an exorcist, a deliverance minister, a demonologist, a spiritual life advisor, and a life coach, a best-selling author, an inspirational speaker. So many hats that this gentleman wears. We are so happy that he's found some time in the busy month of October to join us. So please help us in welcoming to Dead Air the Reverend Bill Bean.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate being on with you.
Oh, God. Last time I think you and I spoke face to face was in Gettysburg.
Yeah, that's been a while.
Yeah, I told you about some of the oppressive things that I was going through,
Yes.
told you about my night terrors, and you said, "You're on your own later, bud," and you walked away from me.
No,
That doesn't sound right.
No, I would not do that. And anytime you need me, I'll be there. That's for sure.
You thought it was
That's-
getting an autograph. That's all I wanted from you was an autograph. That's all.
No, it's just my mantra in life now. And I didn't choose to do this work. God chose me to do this work. And I would have never in a million years uh, chose to go and do some of the things that it's only by the power of God that I can do these things to start with. But some of the situations that I have been in, and some of the places, and some of the things that I have seen and experienced, uh, there's really no words for it. We'll try and cover some of this during the interview, but I think you would have to be there. You would have had to have been there with me to see some of these things. And even if you were standing there with me, you'd still rub your eyes and go, did that just happen? Did I really just see that? It's just astounding. It really is. This is supernatural in the most high way, I guess, and in some instances in the most severe ways.
Yeah.
I can tell you, I read your book, and I can tell you at this point in time, God must love you to have the power to continue on in the things that you've endured your whole life, whether it was around you and or your family, to the clients that you dealt with, and they are so appreciative to the work that you've done also. But Bill, I got to tell you, any of those experiences would have probably pushed me out of the paranormal years ago. Some pretty dramatic stuff. And God bless you for having the tenacity to stay in there, having God at your back to continue to guide you and do what it is that you're doing. So God bless you for that.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it. And it's so great to be back with you guys again. I always enjoy talking with you, and I'm glad that, yes, I'm busy, but it worked out perfectly. You know, we put this time aside, and I made sure that I was going to keep this time clear to where we could talk and have a great interview here tonight. And I'm just, I really am thankful to God for working through me in the way that He does. And certainly, George, you've read the book, so you can see that some of those things, and that's just scratching the surface. Guys, I have helped people in 54 countries, and my case files are bulging. So there'll probably be follow-up books to this, other volumes, but these are some that were in the forefront that I just selected to put together in the book. But there are so many more, and it's astounding. It really is.
That it is. All right. Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn you over to Mr. DaCosta. I'm going to open up a window in here because there's a beautiful cool breeze outside, and I'll be joining you guys back here in just a few minutes. So thank you again for being here, Bill.
My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. We're going to have a great night here. Ken, whatever you want to ask, fire away, and let's do it.
All right. I love it. Batting lead off tonight. So here we go. Questions just popped into my head because we just put the book up there. And I want to ask you this going off script a little bit here. When you have made the decision to write a book like that, of course, you're documenting your own life experiences. And a lot of times when you write something down in front of you, there's a certain clarity that comes with as you put the words to paper. And it's just you try to find the right words to say, to describe these things and to document them. But how much of that really? Because I know the type of guy you are, and it's not just a passion project. You're trying to send your message out there to people as well that might identify with it. Maybe they'll answer some questions for them. Like I said in the opening tonight, that I encourage some of the folks that are in there tonight, because I know they've shared their stories with us. Please do that tonight. You know, here's an opportunity for some help for you. But how much of that goes into when you sit down and do a project like that? Sure, it's for me, but this is also for the people as well.
You're absolutely right. And so this is my 10th book. And in every one of those books, God kind of puts an urging in my spirit. And so when that happens, I obey that. One book, I think it was the third book, 10 Steps to Victory. I was sleeping and God put this dream on me and woke me up out of my sleep. I saw the cover, I saw the title, everything, and I got up and just started working on it. So when God puts these ideas for me to start writing, then I have to obey that, and I go right in and go to work. And so this was no different. And I guess the only difference in this book as opposed to the other ones is that I have to walk a very fine line. So I never want to divulge the relationship of minister-client. And so I would never put anything in there if the people didn't want it in there.
Understood.
And a couple of the cases, 3, as a matter of fact, I didn't mention any names or locations or anything like that. I just wanted to be super careful of protecting the identities of the victims in those cases. But then there were other cases that I did, put the victims' names in there, like Joe and Mercedes Benedict. Mercedes is in here tonight.
Right.
And Ken, I'll tell you, it's just amazing. Also, how it varies from case to case. So yes, there are the cases of severe demonic possession, but also in the book, there are cases of like land possession. and manifestations of demons that had taken over homes and things of that nature. So I tried to blend it in there and give examples of the different types of situations that arise through a demonic infestation and a stronghold and an attachment, which can lead to a demonic possession.
Yeah. And what I'm going to try to do to some degree is act as a conduit here for our audience tonight, because they're terrific. We have, we're blessed to have a very smart audience, and we're blessed to have a very tight community here. So some of the questions that I have, and these might seem kind of fundamental, but in reading about a prayer of deliverance as opposed to an exorcism, can you tell us a little bit about the differences and the discrepancies in those two things? Because a lot of times I think the way they're presented, people think they're one and the same. How far off are we on that?
Not too far off. So exorcism is a Catholic rite and ritual. So I'm not Catholic, I'm non-denomination. However, I do perform exorcism. If I say spiritual deliverance, for instance, I was on the Glenn Beck show one time, and I said, I'm a deliverance minister, and Glenn Beck said, well, wait a minute, why don't you just say you're an exorcist? I said, well, because I'm non-denomination, and exorcism is really a Catholic rite and ritual, and I wouldn't want to mislead anybody. However, at the same time, I understand what he was saying, because nobody knows what a deliverance minister is. They identify with an exorcist.
Correct.
And so I learned from that. And so that's why I put that title in the book. So I don't perform the Catholic rite of exorcism. However, I do perform the rites of exorcism more closely, and don't get me wrong here, I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, that's for sure. But in and along those lines, to where Jesus would perform exorcisms all the time, casting out demons out of people, places, and things. And so I go along those lines to where I just completely rely on God to give me what I need. And that is by taking power and authority over demonic entities, by the mighty power of God. His name is Yahweh, listed 6,823 times in the Bible, replaced with the title of Lord. Wherever you see Lord in caps, that should say Yahweh. Jesus' Hebrew name is Yahshua, which means Yahweh saves. Yahweh saves through him. So by the mighty power of Yahweh, and his mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I am able to do these things. So yes, I use a combination of holy water, holy oil, and holy salt. Yes, I use a cross, and I do have scripture-based prayers that I say in each and every one of these exorcisms. Now, spiritual deliverance, kind of the same, Ken. It's kind of the same, but yet it can differ and vary because of the degrees of the severity of the case. So there could be a person that has a stronghold, a demonic stronghold on them, which includes a demonic attachment. It could be the obsession phase, which leads to the demonic oppression, which is the middle ground there. It's the last step before a full demonic possession. And so spiritual deliverance comes into play in some of those cases, along with binding and rebuking and casting out demons out of homes, pets, objects, vehicles, you name it. I have been involved in it, and I have seen it. So they vary from each other, but yet at the same time, they're very close as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that, you have to make your own assessment of a situation.
Yes.
Because oftentimes when I may get a call from someone who, and this, I mean, it happens more often than you think. They've kind of self-diagnosed themselves.
Yeah.
I have something demonic, and we haven't even set foot in the place yet.
Yeah.
You know, so I would imagine there's an assessment process, and you probably do an interview and you sit down over a cup of coffee with somebody and just have a chat.
And if I don't, my assistant does. So yeah, we talk with people, we get their story, and then we assess everything. And the number one tool of the devil is fear. So if the devil can get the person in the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living, then he's got them right where he wants them. And so all life operates on frequency and vibration. So if our frequency and vibration is on high, life is good, life is positive, we're moving forward. But if it's on low, life sucks. And there's a variety of issues and challenges. And there never seems to be an answer. The person feels like they have a black cloud over their head. Nothing ever goes right. And they are in the depths and pits of despair. And so that's where the devil wants people to be. He wants to, and another thing, the most common thread in that ties most of the cases together, not all, but a good chunk of them, is that some type of trauma has taken place, usually in childhood, and whether that's child molestation or severe physical abuse or mental abuse as well. It has to be something that creates that high level of trauma, because not only are the demons obviously attached to a perpetrator that would carry out such wicked and heinous acts, but once that level of trauma is established, then the demons, some will go on to the victim, and they will stay on that victim until an agent of God comes along to evict them.
Yeah. Some of the things you're saying are perfect segues into some of the questions and some of the things I wanted to talk to you about. So maybe I'm on the right track here.
You are.
But what I've already seen in chat tonight, well, those who don't know you, it's like, this guy looks really familiar, you know? And of course, you know, a lot of people know you from your appearances in shows like Ghost Nation, A Haunting, and so forth. And it's like, yeah, you know, I know that guy. But when we see you on these various shows, and I don't know how much of this is production value, but typically we'll see you taking a more aggressive posture.
Yeah.
On a particular case. Now, two-part question. Number one, is that always the case when you go into these situations? And if not, what's your determining factor for when you feel metaphorically you've got to punch first?
And that's a great question. And that really brings us back to one of the differences between the rite of exorcism and spiritual deliverance. So this is no knock against any of the priests that perform exorcisms, but in their approach, they come at it from more of a defensive type of standpoint. And and this is how God guides me, that I can't be any other way, Ken. This is how God guides me to do these things. I'm on the offense. So when I come into these situations, the barrels are blazing, and so I have to be the guy in control. So I cannot have any fear whatsoever. I don't care what the situation. And my life's been in jeopardy in some of these cases over the years, and I was able to still not be in fear and stay in control of the situation, even though it could have gotten out of control very quickly. And I thank God and praise God for that. So yes, I am aggressive. I have to be. Demons are bullies. So they're the bully on the block. And when I come into a situation, by the power of God working through me, I have to become the bully over them. And so it is a very aggressive approach, and both barrels are blazing. And so I have to be in complete faith in order to do that. So by the power of God working through me, it is not me. I'm nothing special. I'm just a vessel that God works through, and I thank Him for that. but I have to do my part as well. And my part is to be in complete warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage. I have to remain in that. I cannot be in any type of fear at any time, and I have to remain in control of the situation. So, and I thank God again for helping me to be able to do that, because, man, I've been in some situations that I'm thankful I was able to maintain control of it, but it could have gotten out of hand to the point to where someone could have lost their life.
I mean, that's dramatic type of situation. When we're, we like to sometimes embellish what we do in terms of researching the paranormal, but I mean, very rarely do we speak of life and death,
Yeah.
being a little bit melodramatic. However, when your faith and belief are very powerful things, and this is, the most powerful and probably the most sinister type of interaction with the supernatural one can think of. What are basically, and this is probably so much longer of an answer, but we are given a lot of information about what it is that you do. And obviously, I mean, it seems as though very similar to some athletes, when they step on the field, they just go into a complete zone.
Yeah.
Like mad men and mad women, and yet, an interview later, they're just the most gentle, nicest people working in the community, working for charity.
Yeah.
And you obviously strike everyone as that type of person. Bill is just such a nice guy, a good guy. There's no greater compliment you can give someone than to say, hey, they're a regular guy. But
thank you,
when
brother.
when you cross the white lines, then you've got to just check that at the door. So I completely understand, the mindset as far as switching it off. And again, I want to get back to
I work alone, Ken. So there's no I'd say in 99% of these cases over the years, I'm by myself. So I'm going into a situation, this requires faith as well. I'm going into a situation with people that I do not know. I have an idea of the severity of what's taking place, and at the same time, very aware that I've had people, how can I say this? On a couple of occasions, I could have been shot, and one person handed me their gun and said, I want to shoot you right now. Another one, a few more, tried to stab me. Been hit with things, been in physical altercations to where I had to restrain a victim to keep them safe and to keep myself safe as well. People trying to bite me, spitting on me. So I've been in these severe types of situations to where, again, I have to be in control. I have to be strong. But you're right. In my day to day, I love people. I care about people. I take the sufferings of others very personally, and this is why God called me to do this work in the first place. So yes, I try to just be loving and kind to everybody. But when it comes time for those types of things to take
when
place,
the bell rings,
yeah, I'm ready and I'm up for the challenge, and it's because of God's power working through me.
Yeah, which is where the dumbbells in the back of you come in.
Yeah, I have to be strong. So the mind, body, and spirit works together, and I have to be strong in mind, body, and spirit, and I am committed to that. So in my life, I'm probably the most boring person that you would ever know, in the sense that I'm in a routine, and my routine every day is making God first. I have a real and authentic relationship with God. Am I perfect? Absolutely not. Do I claim to be? Never. I'm real, I'm authentic, and I try my best to be my best and do my best each and every day. I pray every day that God works through me to be a blessing to somebody. And so if I'm committed to God in that way, then I'm committed to excellence. And if I'm committed to excellence, then I refuse to lose. I declare victory in each and every day of my life and will do so for the rest of my life. I also say spiritual warfare prayers every single day of my life. Oftentimes, I don't get to bed before 6:30 a.m. every morning. And, I'm up. I have a lot of sessions with people. If I'm not traveling, then I'm doing sessions via Skype or phone with people. So it could be someone in India or Australia. You'd be amazed at some of these. I had a recent session with a man in Tunisia, which is Northern Africa. And it's just absolutely amazing. These people see me on TV and then they contact me for help. And I'm always busy, but never too busy to help somebody. And God always helps me to be able to maintain and manage my schedule. But I have to tell you, and I say this in the book as well, Ken, I've had periods of burnout. I was traveling for over 6 years before COVID, all over, and sometimes 2 trips a week. And I'd gotten so burned out that I was waking up in hotels going, where am I at right now? It took me a minute to figure out where I was. And so I would never say COVID was a blessing, but it did give me the opportunity to kind of rest and recharge a little bit because again, I take the sufferings of others very personally. So I try to help as many people as I possibly can, even at my own expense.
Yeah. Well, it was an imposed vacation, and it probably came at an opportune time for you.
Yeah.
Bill, what I wanted to ask, among so many other things, is how can something demonic manage to successfully conceal itself within a person? And is that something that can literally last years? Again, there's a misconception that immediately it manifests itself. Somebody makes a call, everyone comes running. But in your experience, I mean, it's sort of like, how can something demonic essentially hide in plain sight? And can this literally go on for years until finally there's a breaking point?
Yeah, absolutely. And so usually something happens in childhood. This is and again, whether it is child molestation or rape or violent crime, is some type of, horrible physical or mental anguish and abuse, something that brings that trauma to a high level. That's when the demons come in. So when a person reaches that level of trauma, blood and secretions will come out of the pineal gland and the adrenal glands, and demons are attracted to that like candy. They love it, and they will stay on that person until an agent of God comes along and evicts them. So yes, this could go on for years. I remember, well, there's a lot of cases in my mind right now that come to mind, but one in particular uh, was in Chicago, and the victim had suffered greatly in childhood, and wonderful family. I love them dearly, and still in regular contact with them to this day. Um, but it took her 30 minutes, no exaggeration, Ken. It took at least 30 minutes, and she was surrounded by family members. So it was she and I and the family members. But it literally took her 30 minutes or better to get, every time she tried to tell me the words, she couldn't say it. And so as part of this, I have to, it's not that I want to know everybody's deep and dark secrets. I have to know it. When I'm involved in a case, I have to know everything because the devil deals in legalities, legal rights. And so we have to get these things up and out and off. And as the person starts to talk about this, it's breaking the links of the chains that the devil has on these people. And this young lady, it was gut wrenching. She tried to say the words and she couldn't say the words, and she tried so many times, and then finally she did. And when she did, that was the beginning of the process to where then, after we got everything up, out, and off, I could engage these demonic forces in spiritual warfare, binding, rebuking, and casting them out. Now, another interesting thing that took place in that case, with many family members present, we were in the living room at one point, and I write about this in the book. And there was a fireplace to my left, and the hearth down at the bottom had these stones in the bottom of it. And when I was binding and rebuking and casting the demons out of the home, because after the exorcism, spiritual deliverance is over with for the victim, it's not over with for me, because I have to go through the entire home and make sure that there are no demons hiding or lurking anywhere in the home. I've got to do a clean sweep. And on this particular occasion, when I was binding and rebuking and casting out, the stones started to move and rattle, and everybody saw it. And then these sounds started coming down. This is in the middle of winter, and there was beating and banging on the house, machine-like sounds. It was one that I will never ever forget. And one of the family members went outside to take a look. Is there something going on? Is somebody doing something? No one was there. Nothing was there. Yet, as I'm binding and rebuking and casting out, we see the stones start to move and shake and quiver, and then all of these pounding and beating and banging sounds from the outside of the house. I will never forget that.
Wow, amazing. You are watching, if you just joined us, Dead Air on KGRA Digital and the Dead Air Full Spectrum Network. Our guest tonight, the Reverend Bill Bean. And one more question from me, Bill, before I bring George in here. Sounds kind of trite, but it's a phrase that we hear so often. So I wanted to ask you, because this is probably on different levels, but is it possible that a person can essentially make a pact with the devil, a deal, so to speak, with the devil? I'm not talking about necessarily I learn how to play the guitar or those kind of things, or I'm famous, but I think you know where I'm going. There's different levels where you become in league and give yourself over. So if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about that aspect?
And that's another great question, Ken. Man, you're firing away with all your questions are great here. This is wonderful. This needs to be told. I mean, people need to know these things. So you're right on the mark. Yes, I have been involved in many cases, and as you say that, they're coming to mind right now. People can summon the devil to make what they think is a deal. Now, here's the flip side of this. So in one instance, and I write about this in the book, a young man had suffered sexual abuse, child molestation, was very angry at God. He was then bullied at school, which he became even more angry with God. And then he decided that he was going to make a deal with the devil in exchange for power, so he wouldn't be victimized anymore. And so this young man went on to become a part of a satanic coven, and they were doing ritual sacrifice of animals. You should have seen the daggers and everything that this young man had in his room. And so anyway, to make a long story short here, the devil doesn't hold his end of the bargain up. So when someone makes a deal with the devil, he's not your partner. He's not your friend. He will lure you in and make you think. And maybe at times there'll be a little something to where you think, oh, wow, yeah, this is cool. He's really helping me out. But what it is, it's all deception. And in the end, he will use, abuse, and then when he's done with that person, he will trash them. So what he's hoping is that he can lure a person in like that and get them to the point to where they will become so despondent that they will consider killing themselves. But he really hopes that they kill other people first before killing themselves. and then it is a great day for him that he is killed, robbed, and destroyed. So in the case of the young man that I'm speaking of, he made his deal, and it didn't last for very long, because then he started coming under physical attack from demonic forces, and then came under a full demonic possession, to where he was starting to assault family members, and they were fearing for their life, and they contacted me for help. And boy, oh boy, I'll never forget that as well. And I praise God for working through me to have freed that young man. And to my knowledge, now I haven't heard from him in a while, but the last time I heard from him, he's doing very well. And then there's another case, there are many, but another that comes to mind is that brilliant young man, great family, just everything positive, everything good. But the young man had come under depression because of a relationship that went bad. And he too decided that he was going to make this deal with the devil. And what happened to him, eventually he came under full demonic possession, to the point, and this is how bad this can get, guys. He was biting chunks of flesh out of his arms and legs. You would have to see this to believe it. And was slithering around the floor like a snake, and had this book full of demonic writings and depictions of the demons that were coming to him. And so he too came under full demonic attack and then full demonic possession. He was taken to the 8 of the top psychiatrists in the area where he and his family live. All they did was fill him full of meds, and they put him on psych holds and things of that nature. And a family member, again, saw me on TV and reached out, and I went there, and God worked through me to free him. And he's doing very well now, praise God. But I'll end that with saying this, and it's in the book. When the exorcism was nearly complete, and when demons are cast out of a person, they have to come out somehow. They're either going to come out through the mouth, through the ears, through the top of the head, or other places. They're going to come. They got to come out, and they're going to come out through some place like that. And in his case, they came out through the top of his head. And when that was happening, his face, his cheekbones went up like this, his chin went down like that. So his face, from the cheekbones to the chin, became a V, went up like that and down like that. I will never, ever forget that as long as I live. And again, praise God for delivering him, because he was in a place that had that continued, he would have either committed suicide or he would have been in a psychiatric facility probably to this day.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bring George in here. When I return a little bit later, Bill has been very kind to share some pretty amazing photographs with us. And a little bit later on, maybe at the top of the hour after the break, we want to maybe run through some of those things. But we do have some questions we'll get to, we promise. And if there's anything you want to say or a question you have for Bill, just continue to send them. We'll get to them later. So, George, it's all yours. I'll be back in a bit, Bill. Thank you for your answers.
Sure, brother.
Yeah, you had all the good questions. I don't know what to ask now at this point in time.
You're a brilliant guy, George. You'll come up with it.
Thank you for joining us again, Bill. Bill Bean is our very special guest tonight. His newest book, Tales from an Exorcist. And again, I had an opportunity to read this book over the weekend, and I wanted to find out your opinion on this parallel. One of the things that you came to a summation of, or through the experiences you found a common pattern, was so many of the clients that you deal with who have come under oppression, possession, tend to have had a background of physical abuse, sexual abuse, mental abuse.
Yeah.
That's gone on for now. About 10 years ago, Bill, I was severely chastised. This is back when we were still doing Blog Talk, if you remember. And
yep, I do.
And when I brought this up, people were not very happy with me, but I'm just looking at a term I've used once before, just pragmatic hypothesis. And what I look at with a lot of the people that tend to have these problems, demonic infestation, could also fall under addiction, whether it's alcohol addiction, whether it's drug addiction, whether it's person addiction.
Yeah.
Anything in any circumstance where you are giving up your free will, something else is controlling you, makes you also susceptible. So, talk a little bit about what you discovered about the abuse part and your thoughts on that part too, that an addictive personality could, in fact, also be susceptible to these types of attacks.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And so again, it's going to require, and even in my own case, the attack started on me at age 5, being
Right.
attacked by demonic forces. So
Your whole
usually it
family dealt
happens.
with a lot.
Absolutely. And usually that's what happens, George. It's a person that is a young child that has some type of, either in the beginning, a visitation from some type of entity. And in some cases, it turns into um, an attack. And then in other cases, if there is, molestation or some type of traumatic abuse in some way, well, then that has opened the door wide for those demons to come in through that level of trauma and abuse. Just as God, so the devil mimics everything that God does, and he puts a vulgar twist on it, obviously. But just as God assigns angels to us, the devil assigns demons, and they wait for
Right.
openings. And when those openings come, a little crack in the door, they're going to kick it in, and they're coming in. And so, yes, there are people that I have helped, and they became alcoholics and drug addicts
Okay.
because they had suffered so greatly in childhood. So what happens is some of those people, they're trying to escape the reality of what has taken place by, in their minds, medicating with, the alcohol and or the drugs.
So the true root is still the abuse.
Yes, it is absolutely. So it's again reaching into those levels of trauma, um, and some people obviously can't deal with that. And when that type of trauma is established, then a lot of people have regular either attacks or visitations or encounters. Something takes place that keeps them off kilter, that keeps them on low frequency, low vibration, which makes them wide open and susceptible for demonic attack. And then it just kind of snowballs out of there. And then in some of the cases, the people get so depressed and despondent
Sure.
that they sort of give up. And once the person gives up the will to live or fight,
That's the game.
then yes, a full possession can take place after that. And then it's going to require, again, an agent of God to come in by the power of God working through that person to evict those demonic entities.
What have you, in your research and in your cases, what have you discovered, if any, type of Because unfortunately, we know this is a global situation with
Yeah.
child abuse. Child abuse
Oh,
is it not only is it's almost like a pandemic, and we're talking about child sex trafficking, all these
yeah.
horrible things that are happening to these kids, but it's not every single one of them that wind up having to deal with an oppression and or possession. Are there telltale signs? Is it still a random pick? Is it the things that are going on with them mentally, physiologically? Have you found any type of pattern that can say this person and this person live next door to each other? They've both been abused. This one's dealing with demonic aspects, and this one here, not so much.
Yeah. And I think for the person that is dealing with it, again, they just can't step out of the fear-based, trauma-based. And so,
There you
and
go.
including myself, for many, many years as an experiencer of those types of things, it was very difficult for me. And when I decided to make God first in my life, that required me to stop doing some things that I was doing. And it also required me to have a new mindset. And I had to step out of that fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living and trade that for what I call warrior mode, which is faith, strength, and courage. It's easier said than done. Some people, I have performed these exorcisms and deliverances over, and they never had another problem. Others, I had to go back to 4 and 5 times because they could not get out of the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living. Therefore, it was giving the devil a legal right to come back.
I've got to find those notes, those messages that I had gotten when I had initially brought this up a decade ago. But the basis of it was, it's not that these people already have enough on their plate. Now you're going to go ahead and say that they can get possessed also. It's not a condemnation. It's an awareness factor of it. It's no different when you're doing your cases. You have to kind of explain to them, this is what you could be susceptible to because A, B, and C. How do they take that? And is there a specific approach when you're there face to face with these individuals to say, this is why, or this is the catalyst, and, proceed forward from here? How do they receive that?
Well, it's some receive it very well, and they'll take that instruction and then they'll run with it, and then they have a complete change in their life for the better.
Okay.
But others are reluctant. Because when you're operating in fear, trust is very difficult. So I believe that one of the reasons that God called me to do this work is because of the sufferings that my family and I had. And so I have been there. I understand it. I know what it's like to suffer. Therefore, I have common ground with anybody that I go to. They know that I've been there, so they can trust me. But if I walked into somebody's house and I was the greatest scholar in the world and I'd written 50 books, and there's nothing wrong with that, but if I've never had the experience, then we can't come together. I can't come together with the victim because I don't understand. I haven't had the experience. So this is why God chooses people like me to do this kind of work. People can trust me because they know that I've been there. And even still, it is very difficult for some people to let go, even though they know that they're in a bad place. They know that they're in the fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living. Some still can't let it go because they're afraid to take that step into the unknown, which is faith, and they just can't do it. It takes a while. Even in my own case, 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward. It was a process.
Sure.
But once I got there, I never looked back. And I was thankful to God for helping me to move forward.
I got to say this, Bill. It probably is about 15 years. I was at the Stanley Hotel in Colorado, and there was a speaker there by the name of Adam Bly. I know you know the name.
Mm-hmm.
And there must have been 300 people in the audience, and Adam said, "You guys shouldn't be doing this paranormal investigating." and at the time, I kind of sat back and went, wait a minute, I just spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars to take this trip, fly out here, meet all the celebrities, and you're telling me what? Not to do. But as time went on and I got more into this field, I started to realize what it is he's talking about.
Yeah.
And I want you to speak on this also, is we don't know, us in the field, and we do understand or should understand that there is risk involved in every aspect of the paranormal. And as an investigator, and you're going to these places, whether residential cases or commercial, that there's an unknown entity. We don't know what we're dealing with. We could be those individuals that are susceptible, something I've had to deal with since Curse City. So what advice do you have for those who are interested in the paranormal, interested in perhaps joining a team or going out solo to investigate places, if they don't know whether or not they are susceptible to these type of attacks? Now, we understand there's safeguards in place, but that's not always going to be a guarantee, is it?
No, and I do agree with what he was saying there, and I talk about that myself. Look, I have a lot of friends in the paranormal field, and I love all of them. I love everybody. I want the best for everybody. But I have spoken about this myself. It's saying it's very, very dangerous. This is not a game. And
No.
the devil is very clever. He's a master mimic, and so are his demons. And so I can't tell you, George, how many people that I've helped over the years that were paranormal investigators, and they'd gone into something and then picked up attachments and were in a really bad way. This has happened many times throughout my career, and some are on some of those TV shows that everybody sees. And so, it is not a game. It is very, very dangerous. You have to be super careful. My best advice would be, if you're going into something like that, make God first and invoke his power over you or your group, before you go into something like that. Assemble in a prayer circle and ask God to come in and be with you, and to be in his hedge of protection, and to send angels to protect you. So here's another thing, and I'm glad you guys are asking so many great questions tonight. Another thing that I need to mention is that in some of today's churches, and I've personally seen it, there are pastors who will start the exorcism, spiritual deliverance aspect as part of their weekly presentation or their sermon or their service or whatever.
Benediction, right?
And so the people start lining up, and they're coming down, or they're this way, and the preacher or pastor or priest or whatever, they're going and starting to cast the demons out of these people. Now, this is very, very dangerous. And I'll tell you what, you would never, ever see me or hear me binding and rebuking and casting demons out without asking Yahweh to send his giant warrior angels to take them into custody. Because if you don't do that, they will jump, and they'll jump into other people and places and things. And so I've seen it many, many times. And it is super important for anybody that is doing this kind of work to make sure that you're covering all the bases. And that is to ask God to send his giant warrior angels to take those demons into custody. That way they're not going to jump into anybody else or anything else. And so we just have to be very careful in everything that we do, because the devil is a roaring lion and he is seeking to devour people. And I have seen this in so many cases. Yeah. And so just be super careful is my best advice.
As we bring Ken back up here also, Ken, I have to agree with you. I mean, there's about another dozen questions just the top of my head that I'd like to go over, but I know our time is limited. We are going to go to our break right now. When we come back, we have some questions from the chat and some very interesting photos for you guys to check out that Bill's provided for us. You guys, we'll see you on the other side. We're going to take a break right now. You are watching Dead Air on the Dead Air Full Spectrum channel and KGRADB.com. Don't go anywhere.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
As UFO reports come in from around the world, the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, is there. We continue to explore new cases and build our massive database. We share our information with the world in a number of ways. If you would like to be part of our investigative team, you are always welcome. What could be more exciting than exploring the UFO question firsthand? Join MUFON, find your friends.
It's not just a donation.
It's a warm blanket.
It's a bottle of clean water.
It's a roof and a bed.
It's knowing someone cares.
It's feeling safe.
It's a today that's better than yesterday.
Every dollar you can spare helps so much more than you can imagine. Please, donate now to help people affected by Hurricane Ian. Your support is urgently needed.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to the second hour of our show with a very special a very special guest, Bill Bean, going to be joining us here again in just a few seconds. We got a special going on tomorrow night with the guys. Isn't that correct? On Monday Night Monsters, Ken?
Yeah, the boys tomorrow night. See, it's contagious now. I can't move my words. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m. on Dead Air Full Spectrum. Monday Night Monsters. Last week's episode was on the origins of Halloween, their most watched episodes. It was phenomenal.
Yes.
Tomorrow they are going to take on the subject of ghosts. And something they haven't done yet, oddly enough, but the origins of ghosts throughout history and some of the most iconic cases. So 8 p.m. tomorrow night on Dead Air Full Spectrum. Monday Night Monsters.
You know how you can get notified? Click on the reminder bell and subscribe. No, you guys do it your way. That's perfectly fine. Let's bring our very special guest on because I know our time is limited tonight. He is the author of I think he said his 10th book now, Tales from an Exorcist. Mr. Bill Bean joining us here tonight. Reverend, good evening again, sir.
Yeah, it's just so great to be with you guys. And this has been a very, very interesting show for me because the questions that both of you have asked have been just top notch. So, man, it makes it that much better when you're having this type of dialogue with these questions, and people need to know these things. And I want to add this, where I guess, counseling or life coach comes in, the aspect of that comes in after the exorcism, spiritual deliverance, because I have to sit down with the victim, and now we have to put a game plan together for this person's life and moving forward, the do's and the don'ts. And so it's imperative that takes place because there are certain things that people shouldn't do or doorways that they shouldn't open, because if they do, then 7 more wicked than the original are going to come back.
Amen to that. I can honestly say, again, it is it does help that you're 6'3". I mean, if you were 5'3" exorcist, it's not as intimidating, but my God, man. But we are so thankful for you joining us tonight. I know we have a few questions here, and then Ken's got some pictures to share. The two of you kind of worked that out, so I'll leave you to that. But let's hit some of these questions from chat very, very quickly and get through these. Let's fire them off. First one here is from Louis T.A. Can possessions feel like sleep paralysis?
Well, there are those who are in the medical field, the psychiatric field, that would say that any type of spiritual attack is really sleep paralysis. And so, yes, they can go very close together. And yes, I'm sure there are people who have sleep disorders, such as sleepwalking or whatever it may be, but the spiritual does come in and can cross into some of those areas as well. I mean, even in my own case as a child being attacked, I suffered paralysis, and it was not sleep paralysis. I was wide awake. My heart, I felt, was just like going to explode out of my body.
Yeah, you dealt with that quite a while, as it said in your book. So again, it's terrifying to even think about. Our good friend Ronald from Minnesota asks, have you ever had a case you could not solve?
Not when it came to performing an exorcism, spiritual deliverance. Those are solved every time by the power of God. However, there are cases that there are many good cases, and I really was so thankful and happy and praising God that it turned out for a good outcome. But there have been other cases that there were not good outcomes, and unfortunately, and this all comes down to free will, George. We all have free will. We're free to make our choices. And unfortunately, if a person goes back to making some choices that were not good for them in the first place, and I'd warn them not to go and make those choices, and they did it anyway, and then they ended up in a really bad place. And some people have gone back to many times. Other times, there are some, it breaks my heart to say that they didn't want to be helped anymore, and they didn't want to come out of their addictions, and very, very sad.
There you go. And, there's another word for free will, and it's choices.
Yeah. Yeah.
Making those right choices.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. It is. Joseph Freza, our good friend, also. Here's a question for Bill. When it comes to the supernatural, what's the most important lessons that you've learned?
Well, the most important thing is to keep God first. There is no way on this earth that I could do what I do without the power of God working through me. So that requires me to have a real and authentic relationship with him. I keep him first in everything. Again, am I perfect? No. Do I claim to be? No. But I absolutely try to do the best that I can do, and I try to be the best that I can be every day of my life. I pray that God works through me to be a blessing to somebody each and every day of my life, and I will do so for the rest of my life.
God bless you. God bless you. Mr. DaCosta, you want to get these last two questions?
Sure. We have another friend of ours, Android Purity, coolest name in chat. Hey, Rev Bill and Pharaoh Marylander. Thanks for all of your hard work. How can a person tell if paranormal activity is demonic versus negative human spirit versus not a negative human spirit?
Well, this is another fine line because the devil is a master mimic. So this is where holy discernment comes in. So for me, I have an automatic knowing of things because of my connection with God. So God will give me holy discernment to know who is who, what is what. And we could roll on this for an hour probably. I've had so many cases like that, and even personal experiences to where I'm going to give you a quick example. As you guys know, I have also had many UFO experiences throughout my lifetime, and that started in childhood and continues to this day. And I have had many divine experiences and lots of demonic experiences as well. Currently, I have divine experiences, and I praise God for it. But a couple of years ago, I had a sighting from my bedroom window, and it was like, I don't know, I think 5 a.m. 5 a.m. on the dot, because I looked to my left, and there was a clock there on the end table on the nightstand. 5 a.m. I looked out. I first saw this white light that was increasing in size. And so what I did was I tested the spirits. So scripture tells us to test the spirits. So when I saw this, I said, Yahweh rebuke thee in Jesus' name, depart. And it did not depart. And I did not feel evil coming from it, but I tested it just to see, just to make sure. So then I started to say, Father, I thank you and praise you for everything. I glorify you. And every time I said that, the light got gigantic. It was a brilliant white light. And it just, every time I said it, and then a second light came behind it. And they stayed out there for 12 minutes. So they were there from 5 a.m. to 5:12 before they disappeared. And it was a divine encounter. I've had many of these types of divine encounters. Matter of fact, I have some video footage that I should have sent to you, Ken. I'm sorry for not sending that. I shot video footage on August 19th. I'm in my office right now, and I shot it from my window in my office. And again, I don't know, it was somewhere around 3:30, 4 a.m., somewhere in there. And I captured this object. I'll have to send it to you guys. Just unbelievable. And it had white in it, and pink and blue and purple. Just absolutely amazing. So I'll send that to you guys after the show, and you can see it for yourself.
Love it. Love to see it.
But again, I praise God for giving me that holy discernment to know which is which. And there's other times that I have come out of performing an exorcism for someone. One comes to mind right now in St. Louis, and it was like, I don't know, 3:30 a.m. in the morning. Nobody's out, and this is in downtown St. Louis. I come out, and all of a sudden, there is a UFO right there over top of me, and I did not feel good about that. I absolutely felt like I was in danger. And I've had other encounters like that to where I felt like I was in danger, like my life was in danger. And then all of a sudden, these other objects come, and I feel like I'm being protected. Now, I know this sounds like crazy talk, but I assure you, everything that I'm saying is absolutely true. And it all ties together. So Psalm 68:17 says, God says, the chariots of God are 20,000. So I believe very strongly. And why does God do this? I don't know. But I do believe that he does have these types of UFO craft, these chariots. There's 70 scriptures in the Bible that mention these things as flying rolls and scrolls, clouds, pillars of a cloud, flying tabernacles, on and on and on. But anyway, I think they are called Merkabah. They in the heavenly host and the angels. Why do they need them? I don't know. But I also believe that when Satan and a third of the angels were cast out of heaven, the B'nai Elohim, the sons of God, they were cast out of heaven. They came down here. They took human women, had sexual relations with them, produced a hybrid offspring of giants called the Nephilim. The Nephilim went into the forest and the fields and had unnatural sex acts with apes and bears and dogs and wolves and you name it. And that is your Bigfoot Sabe creatures. They are every bit as much supernatural as they are a flesh and blood being, and they are the offspring of the offspring. So these things are all connected, whether people want to believe that or not. It is absolutely true. And in a lot of my cases, not all, but in a good deal of them, people were under demonic attack, and they were also having visitations from UFOs and non-human looking beings, and also Bigfoot Sabe creatures. I actually have gone into the woods on several occasions. One time was in a town called Gloversville, New York. I'll never forget it because it was like 10 degrees and it was windy. It was brutally cold and snowing. And I went along the wood line. The people had, I don't know, a couple acres of property there. And I went into the wood line because they said that these creatures were making whoops and howls and screams and shrieks. And they were, the dogs were going to the edge of the wooded area, and supposedly the dogs were traumatized and all this kind of stuff. Well, anyway, the homeowner was with me and a couple other people that night. And I went to the wood line and I said, by the mighty power of Yahweh in his mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I want you to depart now. And I'll tell you, I felt like we were being watched. You could feel the presence of something. I didn't see anything, but you could feel the presence. It was dark, but I knew something was there. And when I said that, you could feel the presence leave.
Wow.
And I've done this on several occasions in other places. Another family in Maryland, these creatures were in the woods behind their home, and they were coming and getting into taking their chickens, and all this stuff. And so I've had lots of experience and personal experience with them as well.
That's a unique approach. That's fascinating to consider. That we are not talking. Well, I don't know. We're talking about something of a higher order.
Yeah, no question about it, Ken. And so I've had, and I think, even though I say these creatures, these Bigfoot Sabe creatures, are the offspring of the Nephilim, who were evil, I don't think all of them are evil. And I can't say for sure, but I can tell you this much. I've had some encounters with these beings. I will not call them creatures because I think they're beings. And in one instance, they left a heart-shaped rock on the bumper of my truck. So where I live at, it's a wooded area, so I'm surrounded by woods. And I came out one day, and there was a potato, one of those like potato-sized rocks, and it was cut into a heart. It was a heart, and it was placed on my bumper. And another time, there was this weaved, it looked like branches that were weaved together in a circle, and they left that as well. And I have found footprints. I was last June, or it was the June before, I was outside waxing my car, and I heard clack, 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 clack. It sounded like slate, like they were taking, and then it sounded like they were rubbing it together. And I didn't see anything. There's a ravine. So there's a wooded area and a ravine, and I could hear something very heavy walking down there, branches snapping and cracking and everything. And then I started hearing this. It sounded like two pieces of slate being, rubbed together, and then clack, 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 clack. And the most astounding thing about that is, I stood my ground. I continued to wax my vehicle, but I had an eye. Believe me, I'm looking out. But this was the most incredible part of the whole thing, is that at one point, and this would reinforce what some people say about these beings being able to make themselves invisible, the clacking came within 20 feet of me. So from where I was to the edge of that embankment, and it's the edge of the parking lot, which goes down into an embankment, had to be at least 40, 50 feet. But yet, as I'm hearing the clacking, it's coming closer and closer and closer. And I'm telling you guys, it was within 20 feet of me, and I didn't see anything, but I heard it just like we're talking now. And then it retreated, and I heard it again, but it was further away, like it had gone back down the embankment.
Wow. Here's the amazing part. The benevolence that these creatures are showing seems to be free will.
Yeah.
They could opt for their ancestral instincts, and yet they're choosing on their own. That's what's amazing about it.
I agree 100%. And so, again, I guess when a person or being has free will, then they can freely choose to do good or evil. And make no mistake, we know that there are other types of beings out there,
yes,
in that order, that are very aggressive and possibly even killers. And so I guess obviously it does come down to free will. And there are also many cases of people seeing UFOs in conjunction with Bigfoot Sabe beings. And I personally have heard the beings and then seen the UFO or lights very close to the ground in the trees and things of that nature. I've personally seen that, so I know that it is real, and there is a connection to all of these things, and it ties in with the paranormal supernatural phenomena as well.
Yeah, this is something that is quite the rage now, the unified paranormal theory, where it becomes ghost demons, UFOs, cryptids, all these things have a tie-in. But if we're talking about a creature like, we call them Sasquatch, Bigfoot,
right,
whatever the case may be, when you're talking about the ability to reason, which is really evolutionary on a different level. You know, you may call it instinct, but the idea of a primate to create logic and reason in their minds, to literally be able to make decisions like that. When we're talking about these beings, as I said, it's a higher evolutionary scale of any primate that's walked the earth.
Yeah, no, it's true. And, you know, again, I would not be talking like I'm talking now if I didn't have personal experience with these beings and other beings as well. I mean, throughout my lifetime, I have seen on several occasions throughout my life non-human looking beings in my presence. And again, it's only by the power of God that I could stand in there. And I'll mention one before you guys get to the photographs. It was, I want to say 2014, and the lady was possessed, and God worked through me to free her. It was a large home, and I had to go through the home again to make sure that no demons were hiding or lurking in there. And I came, so going through everywhere, and I finally get to the last part, which is a wide set of steps that goes up to the attic area. And the attic, a very large space, but is, I guess, being turned into a master bedroom. And so I go up the stairs, and I actually had a couple people with me, a couple young men with me. And to the right, there was a lamp. It was illuminated, so it was bright on that side. I went through and did what I had to do: blessing, cleansing, clearing, binding and rebuking, casting out. And so then over to the left side was all dark and no light at all. Now on that side, on the far wall, there was a window, and I think it was like a double window. It was there on the right. And then I would say probably 6 feet over from that was a ventilation shaft. So I go over to there, and the moonlight was coming through the windows. And standing in between that window and the ventilation shaft, this entity was at least 7 feet tall, black, red eyes, and it looked like it had wings, like you could see the points coming up over the shoulders, like folded in wings or something. You could see the points coming up. I had a Bible in my left hand. I had a holy shaker in my right with a combination of holy water, holy oil, and holy salt. And it was only by the power of God. I mean, can you imagine this? I mean, this really happened, Ken. Can you imagine? I couldn't have been anywhere. The thing couldn't have been any more than 10 feet in front of me. And it was only by the power of God that I could stand in there and have the courage to stand there. You know, a lot of people would have ran, they would have soiled themselves, or would have passed out.
I would say 99% of people would have beat feet out of there at that point.
And again, I praise God for helping me to stay strong. And I said, and I looked directly at it. I said, by the mighty power of Yahweh and his mighty and holy name, in Jesus' name, I bind and rebuke and cast you out. And I took the thing and flung it 3 times. This entity let out a screech like I have never heard before, since it was so loud that it rattled the windows when it departed. I will never, ever forget that as long as I live. And those young men that were with me saw it as well. They were terrified.
That has got to be among the most terrifying phenomena that you've ever seen.
That was one. And then another one, watching a victim levitate off of a bed and then just dropped back down onto the bed. And then having an entity speak to me, and this was before I became the spiritual warrior. And this was back in the late 80s. A loved one came under demonic possession, and the entity spoke to me, and it was a deep masculine voice. I first said, for a man with such faith in your God, you surely don't know the Bible. And the entity was right, because at that point in time, I didn't know any scriptures. I didn't know the Bible at all. I was just starting out in trying to come to God, but not there yet. And the entity was mocking me by quoting scripture after scripture after scripture. The victim didn't know the scriptures either. And so then at one point it also said, why don't you just give up and join us? And I said, who are you? And it said a name. And boy, oh boy, let's just say that the movie The Exorcist, it's not too far off. I've seen just about everything except for a person's head spinning all the way around. All the other things I've seen levitation. I've seen people's eyes go all white, all black, all red. In one case, the lady's eyes went like a yellowish greenish color with reptilian slits. I've seen people's limbs twist in ways that a human body cannot twist without snap, crackle, and pop, bones breaking, or ligaments tearing. I have seen it. Superhuman strength. Again, one case, one of the most severe cases, I had to cast out. There had to be at least 20 or more demonic entities in this person, and I had to cast them out one at a time. And as I was binding, rebuking, casting them out, another one would manifest with a whole different personality and voice, and the threats and the vulgarity. Again, spitting on me, trying to bite me. You would have to see it, Ken, with your own eyes to truly understand what I'm saying to you, and your viewers as well.
I'm very close to saying no, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, you wouldn't. And in that case, the family members were being physically attacked, and they were absolutely terrified by what was going on. One man was a military man. He'd seen combat and all that, but he was terrified. He'd never experienced anything like that. And it's just, I could go on and on and on in the different cases and the different dynamics, but I truly have seen it. And again, projectile vomiting, I have seen that as well and experienced that. You name it, except for seeing a person's head totally spin around. All the other things I've probably seen and experienced.
That's great. I'm going to move on to some of these photos, but I just taking a quick note because I want to come back to something that you just said, but I want to get to some of these things. And,
Sure.
There's a preponderance of light anomalies. And why don't we start there? Because
that's always a good place to start.
Said something very fascinating about UFOs. And what I'm going to do, Bill, is I'm going to run through these. And if you want to quickly comment, and I'll just keep moving on these things. Now, is it safe to say that the majority of these photographs were taken by you, or maybe
99% by me, and then I think there's a couple, like one of me at the age of 3, another one of me at age 2, so that was taken by one parent or the other. And but yeah, the majority were taken by me.
All right, we've got 9:30 now. You're going to hang around with us?
I'm going to hang with you, and yeah, I'm going to make time here so you can.
Fantastic, thank you so much.
Because I want this. You guys are great. I want your audience to see some of these photographs.
Yeah. We're okay. All right, let's start from the beginning because that's a very good place to start. So Here we go.
That one, those were 2 UFOs taken in the sky outside of my house over my backyard. And at that time, I can't remember what year that was. I don't know if that was, I want to say between 98 and 2002, somewhere in there. And that was over my backyard. I was living in, my wife and I lived in Baltimore County at the time. And between 1995, January of 1995, and 2008, I was seeing and documenting UFOs on a regular basis. I've had as many as 50 people in a group that have been with me to witness these things manifest. I have been covered on every news station in the Baltimore area, showing my footage. I've had some of those news stations come out. I used to have sky watches with these people. They would come out, they would want to see these things, and the news people would come out on all these things. It was just, I shot over 16 hours of video footage and taken over 1,000 photographs of these objects.
All right. Here is one from 1995 that you labeled Boomerang.
Yeah, that may have been the second or third photograph. The first photograph I took was on October 5th, 1995, and this wasn't long after that. And this was taken from my aunt's house in Baltimore. And she was skeptical at first, and other family members. I mean, look, when you're saying you're seeing these things, even my wife had a hard time believing it until she started seeing it with me. And then they started seeing it. And so everybody changed their tune then. And wow, there's really something to this. And it's hard to believe. I mean, it really is for anybody. It's hard to believe, but it is true. And these things have happened, and I have been able to document them. So it was a white boomerang type of object that had this vapor or mist or whatever it is that was coming out from under it.
Okay, here's a couple from 2021, June 8th. Here is one.
Yeah.
It looks like a beam of some sorts being casted. Am I reading that right?
No, you are. And that was taken from my bedroom window. And so there's a building across from where we live. And that is, I mentioned the wood line. So that is all wooded area there. And the woods go all the way behind that building and around. So we're surrounded, by woods. And that's a very interesting picture, Ken, because if you go closer in on that.
Is this the one?
There's a nut. Well, no, that's a different
one. We'll go back one.
But you could see, some type of facial structure or whatever or image, in that. But boy, the one that you just went to there, wow, that's another entity that certainly looks demonic. And
yeah, I kind of put this in here because when I looked at it, the first thing I got out of it was that it looked like a mummy wrapping of some type.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? It's just, and these are recent photographs, and I'm not seeking any of this. This is part of my walk that I, for some reason, have to bear witness to these entities, and whether it is evil. Or in most cases now it's divine, and I praise God for that. But for whatever reasons, it could be nothing more than the devil just trying to get to me. If not for God's protection over me, I would have been dead a long time ago.
Isn't it interesting too, Bill, that the lower jaw and the cheekbones form that V similar to your client?
Correct. Absolutely right. And that's what happened in his case. And it sure does look similar to that.
All right, I'm going to move on to what I just labeled some light anomalies, so you can enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, I think that was 1998, if I'm not mistaken. These three boomerang-shaped objects, and this was an area called Ferndale. And interestingly enough, this was not far from Baltimore Washington International Airport.
Okay.
And Fort Meade. And Fort Meade, NSA, that area, has long been rumored to have underground bases there.
Mm-hmm.
And I really don't know the answer, but I will speculate in saying that, let's just say it wouldn't surprise me if there isn't some type of facility underground that is housing non-human beings. That wouldn't surprise me.
Well, one of the 2017 releases by the United States Navy had to deal with an object somewhere off the mid-Atlantic states. They just called it East Coast, but eventually they revealed it was closer to Baltimore, New Jersey, Delaware, etc., and so forth. That's where they got it from.
And there are rumors of these types of bases existing, and I believe them. That's for
Right.
sure. This is another interesting photo that this thing, and this is probably in the early 2000s, I guess, maybe 2002 or something like that. Now, I took a daytime photo in 2001 of a similar object. And then here again, this is the nighttime shot. So it is amazing, all the different types of, there it is. Yeah, that's the 2001 photo, and that was taken in Reisterstown, Maryland. And just look at the structure.
Right.
I mean, it's just incredible. Same thing. And so, I believe that was 2002. That was 2001.
Right. Okay. Yeah. This is 2001 right here.
Yeah. Yep.
But your classic cigar shaped UAP.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another one. I want to say that one, 96, somewhere around there, somewhere in the mid to late 90s. And that's interesting because of the shape of those lights there. And also, if you look on the edges, it looks like red lights on each, edge of that. So very interesting. And I've had a lot of those types of photos were taken when I had 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or more people with me, and they were taking pictures as well. I'll never forget a time. It was in July, was it 1997 or 98? A MUFON investigator came from Virginia to meet with me. Filer's Files was talking about some of my sightings and all this kind of stuff, and he came up. We met at the Baltimore Washington International Observation Line, and it was a hot day and not a cloud in the sky. And I said to him, and this sounds crazy, Ken, it all sounds crazy, but it's all true. I could feel the presence of angels and demons, I can feel the presence of these types of things as well. And I said to him, I pointed to the sky. I said, "It's out there. Do you see anything?" He says, "No, I don't see anything at all." I said, "Well, there is something there." And he says, "Bill, there's nothing there. I can't see anything. It's a blue sky." I said, "Okay, let's do this." I had a camera in my hand. He had a camera in his hand. I said, "Let's take a picture at the same time at that spot in the sky, and let's see what is revealed."
Oh, is this going where I think it is? This awesome.
And we took that photograph, both of us, and sure enough, it revealed a disc-shaped object that was sitting right there. That we couldn't see it with our eyes, but I perceived that it was there. And he wrote a book, and he wrote about it and mentioned that in his book, Synchronistic Adventures. And just amazing. Alexander Zekas, he came up from Virginia, MUFON investigator, and was astounded when that happened. And that's not the only time, Ken, that things like that have happened. There have been other places, other people, other cities, other towns, other states to where I felt that. And I said, "Hey, look, take a picture right there." And the person takes the picture. And sure enough, there is something there that we can't see.
That's going to lead me to the jotting I was doing before that. We'll get to that before we get out of here tonight about projection and perception. So
yeah,
a little theory on that. There are 2 that you submitted that just immediately, like I looked, this is one of them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That was in Chase, Maryland. And I want to say that was probably maybe 98, somewhere around there.
Okay.
And that photo was not taken by me. That photo was taken by a dear friend of mine. Her name's Lisa Stem. She's no longer with us, but she actually took that photo, and that was in Chase, Maryland.
The one thing that stands out to me as far as UFO photos that I've seen analyzed by people like Mark Antonio, what is his name? The forensic.
Jim
Maccabee, Bruce
Maccabee, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is a physical object within that glow.
Yeah. Oh, no
by
doubt.
the aura and the rings around it whatever you're seeing in brilliant white is actually a physical object.
No question about it. It's a spectacular photo, and it is something that would be among the strongest in this presentation. That there's no aircraft that we know of that looks like something like that.
Correct. Let's show this one too. This is interesting.
Yeah, that's another one. And when I look at something like that, I go, okay, is this seraphim? Is this in the angelic realms? And I have lots of photos with that I believe to be angels in the photographs, and this is certainly one that I believe is along those lines. I could be wrong, but I do believe that it is in the angelic realms.
Yeah, what I see there, according to what I know about cameras, is that you've got probably a slower shutter speed that took these, but there's something there. It just happens to be in motion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
At that time, it's not necessarily the shape of what it actually is, but it shows movement at a higher rate of speed. And here's another one too that I kind of love this one.
That's the first one. I took that photograph on October 5th.
Correct.
1995. And this object, and this happened at like 2:45 a.m. and in an area called Pasadena, Maryland, which is south of Baltimore City. And I had picked my wife up from work, and we're going down the road, and it's, not really any traffic on the road. And I look to my left, which we're traveling north. I look to my left, it's a western sky, and this object is coming across, and I'm going, and she saw it, and it just like zipped right across, and it stopped. It got over the tree line, and it stopped. And so I pulled the car over, and she was yelling and screaming. She did not want me to pull that car over, but I did, and I got out. I had an Olympus OMG 35 millimeter camera, and I snapped 8 shots. This object was not making any noise at all. It was sitting motionless over the trees, and I would click, 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 and that's the only one that really turned out. And after the 8th shot, it zipped like as if it were on a line. It zipped right down the tree line, just went right down silently and effortlessly right down the tree line until it was out of sight.
The next one I'm going to show is from 1996, and this was the other one that really got my attention.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was taken near my home at the time in Baltimore County. And it looks like a manta ray or something. It's got the tail on it, and you see the red on the edge of the tail, and you can also see a little bit of red over on that far side, on the right side. But yeah, just absolutely amazing. I will never ever forget that. I was standing. I actually saw it in the sky, and I pulled over. It was like some type of utility company. I pulled over in the parking lot and jumped out of the vehicle and took a shot of that.
Now, what that shows me, the red that you see from the center to the right of the screen, that means to me whatever that was so luminescent and so brilliant that it literally affected the lens of the camera. That's amazing. How bright that thing was. That's the residue from a camera lens just being overwhelmed by the brilliance of that light.
And it absolutely was brilliant. And I'm going to have, next time I come on, I'll have to, before then, I'll send over some of the video that I have taken over the years.
Okay.
And it'd be pretty interesting, some of it.
Yeah, please.
Okay, we got the last 3 we're going to get to. Here is one that's
Yowza. I think that was 2020, I want to say.
2020, correct, yes.
That was taken from my bedroom window.
Why is that freaking thing? Why is it moving towards me in a still picture?
Yeah, you do.
And I zoomed on it. I zoomed in on it, but still, it was. And the video footage that I shot on August 19th is similar to that. So it's the same shape of that craft, but it had white like that has, and it had blue, purple, and pink in it as well. So I will be sending that video over to you guys after the show. And it was coming towards me, but I zoomed in as well. So it made it look a lot closer to me than it was. But still, I mean, it was pretty close.
Yeah.
And for me to, be going out the bedroom window, and we live on the 5th floor, and for me to do that, it was definitely coming towards me, and an amazing shot. And I have a lot of shots like that. I took a series of shots, and I have many more like that.
Okay, we'll go into the last two. This is 1995.
That was in Baltimore.
Okay,
and,
you're in the you are in the upper right, correct? That's what we're looking at.
Now the object. See the blue lights right there?
Yeah, dead center or to the left of dead
It
center?
would be to the right of dead center where the two little blue lights are.
Okay.
That's the object that I saw.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I don't know what this light burst is right here. I didn't see
Street
that.
light there? No.
Is that? I don't know. It could be.
Okay.
But then again, these things here, I don't know. And maybe if that is a street light, then it could be producing that type of globular type of thing. But this is what I was looking at, the two blue lights. And again, these objects, they don't make any sound at all. So, it is possible that, because you see the top of the tree right there, so maybe it is, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just seeing the tree lit up, number one.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably maybe a street light, and the reflection goes in a straight line diagonally. But I see what you mean about the two white dots there, which was the rest of it. Yeah, that's the subject of the picture.
Yeah.
The rest is all camera artifacts.
Yeah. And just the most amazing thing is that these things they appear, they are silent, and they can disappear like that.
Right.
And then in some cases, which I have photographs of the black triangles too, they look to be very light in the air, and they can move very quickly and then come to a stop, and then all of a sudden take off like they hit the gas or something, and they're just from one spot to another almost instantaneously.
Right. And the last one here, and we'll move on, is right here.
That was 2017, I think, and that was down here in the Annapolis area. And just amazing. I mean, it has that saucer type of,
pretty classic saucer.
Yeah. And then, this tinge of yellow. So it's a white light, but it's got that, illumination of yellow on the edges.
Right.
And it's a very unique photograph compared to a lot of the others.
Yeah, absolutely. And George, I'm going to turn it, with your indulgence, I wanted to get to this thing because you were just talking about a picture that you took that someone else didn't see. You talked earlier about some of the contortions, some of the subjects, some of your clientele that you see.
Yeah.
If I assume that they didn't show any injuries post-event, like, an arm contorted, where the idea that obviously this thing's been broken in 7 places. But if it didn't display that, my simple question to you, there are 2 things I like to think of when we talk about spirit manipulation is projection, how they are projecting what they want you to see. Mm-hmm. And then our receptors, our own perception of what they are projecting at us. And 2 people may not see the same thing. So is it possible that sometimes when you see these contortions and these grotesque things that subjects are doing, if there's no injuries post-event, is it actually happening to them physically, or is this a projection of maybe what an entity wants you to see?
It's
Something
possible.
As grotesque as that.
Yeah, it's possible, Ken. It really is. I can't say for certain, one way or the other, because I have not. Yes, I've seen the limbs contort and move in ways that the human body can't. But that's a very good point that you make, that there are no injuries after that. And if I sat here and tried to twist my limbs around like that, there'd be snap, crackle, and pop.
Yeah,
We're
in the hospital.
Yeah. So again, perhaps it is like a some type of parlor trick that is a projection of something wanting you to see or perceive something that might not actually
make you recoil and run out of the room. And
well, the whole design is to put people in fear anyway. So, I mean, why not try these types of tactics to see if you could accomplish that?
Okay, optic manipulation. That's optic or mental manipulation. That's an interesting perspective. It really is.
It's possible.
Bill, you're not going to believe this, but we're out of time.
Wow.
We ran through this entire show like it was a 10-minute show. Unbelievable.
Terrific.
So much to cover, and we still haven't scratched the surface. I'm thinking right after the New Year sometime when you're snowed in Maryland, and from what I understand with the traffic, that doesn't take much.
Oh, yeah.
Keep an eye on the weather. It's like 18 inches of snow. Call Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. That's two more stories in the book as well. But I want to thank you guys. It's really been a pleasure. And you're right. It was like it went by like 10 minutes. We covered so much in such a short amount of time, but there's a lot more to talk about. So
much
I'll be ready when you guys are, and we'll make it happen.
We are ever so grateful for you spending some extra time with us tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun doing it.
I sure did, and I look forward to being back with you guys again. I want to thank everybody else, all of you out there that have been watching. I hope that you found this interesting. If you're out there and you are going through a bad time and you're struggling and you're in need, and you don't have to necessarily be under possession. I mean, if you just feel like you've lost your way and you're struggling, then reach out and contact me. And usually if it's somebody under possession, it'll be a loved one that contacts me on their behalf. But if you are having problems and you're struggling, just reach out, contact me, billbeanwarrior.com. If you want to get a copy of the new book, same thing. You can visit the site. It's also on Amazon, but you can visit the site and order from there as well.
Absolutely. And George Lopez will autograph it for you.
No doubt.
And that's a win-win. So you can't lose on that deal.
With the remaining time here, Bill, what is coming up for you over the next couple of months? Well, you have any appearances, any lectures, any events you're attending?
A plethora of media interviews now in support of this new book. And I'm not going to make any appearances until after the first of the year. I do have some of that scheduled starting in Maryland. But right now, it is all about doing the media tour for this book. And I have Coast to Coast coming up on November 1st. And I'll be back on there again with George Norrie.
Those hacks. They just try and do what we do. It's not possible.
We call it October because we're busy. Bill just calls it another day over the course of the year.
It is. I'll tell you, everything is just a blur after a while. And again, I'm thankful to God for helping me to be able to manage it all. But I do look forward to coming back with you guys. It's been great.
Oh, Bill, we thank God for you and everything that you do and the sacrifices that you make. And you're a cornerstone of this field. Cannot wait to get you back with us here again soon, my friend. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my brothers. God bless you, and God bless everybody out there, and have a good rest of the night. And we'll talk soon.
Bill, take care. Hey, I look forward to seeing whatever you want to send us. In fact, the next time did we lose him?
No, I'm still with you.
Whatever you want to send, it's like, with your permission, maybe a couple of weeks from now when we come back, we'd love to show the footage.
Yeah. Feel free. So anything I send, show it anytime you want. And after we hang up here, I'll shoot you an email with that video footage.
We are all out of time. Thanks so much, Bill Bean, for being here. And everybody in the chat, don't forget to subscribe. We're off next week. We're going trick-or-treating. We'll see you next time. Have a great night.
Good night.